Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to the T. Edward Morning Show. This is Far North Spirits coming to you live from just outside of Hallock, Minnesota. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning everybody. I'm Mike Swanson. I'm one of the co-owners of Far North Spirits up here in Hallock. We're starting on a balmy day in March, almost April, and it's 30 degrees. We're at the corner of 200th Street and 220th Avenue. As you can see, traffic is a bear. We're just going to pull into the farm and the distillery here and show you the beautiful landscape that is the northern prairie this time of year. As you can see, everything is lush and verdant, green. It's really the prettiest time of year up here. We're gonna show you this from the pickup because we've got about a 20-mile-an-hour south wind that if we stepped outside you wouldn't be able to hear a thing. So to spare your ears the wind, we'll just talk to you from the pickup here. Okay. So this is a rough time for everybody, and so I wanted to show you some open spaces. Everybody is inside, and we really empathize with you. Everybody, all of our friends in New York. We hope to see you soon, and we really feel for what you're going through right now. Where we're pulling into right now is the family farm. This was originally purchased by my great-grandfather Gustav back in 1917, and we've been farming it ever since. We're just pulling into the farm and the distillery here. Over to my left, you can see the corn that we harvested back in December this year, and that's corn that we're turning into bourbon and rye whiskey. And a few other things that have just popped up, which I'll explain after we get into the distillery. The farm here, in the distance, you can see an old four-square. That was my grandparents' house. And the house on the left is where my folks live. And then up in front of us here, you see some grain bins and a Quonset. There's also a tall structure. That's an elevator that my grandfather built in 1957 to handle grain. Interesting structure, no longer used, kind of obsolete at this point, but an interesting place. Over to my right is the farm shop, where we pull in equipment to work on all year round. It's kind of the base of operations during the farming season. And now we're going to drive come down the driveway to the distillery. As you can see, more March loveliness up here on the landscape. So as we pull in, you can see the distillery itself. You can also see a couple of grain bins here. Those hold rye and corn that we make our spirits out of. And so as you can see here in proximity to the distillery, the cornfield is literally just over 200 steps into the distillery to the still. So when we say it's field to glass, we really do mean that. It's literally right outside the door. As we pull in here, we're going to go quiet for a second because you won't be able to hear us anyway due to the wind. So it'll be just a second as we walk into the distillery, and then we'll show you around in there a little bit.
Yeah, she's not getting out of the pickup. She knows better. Are you coming in? You see her? Okay, here she comes.
Again, I'm Mike Swanson. I'm one of the co-owners of Far North Spirits. We just showed you the beautiful verdant landscape around here. Now we'll show you inside the distillery where it's nice and warm. Got our distillery cat and our distillery dogs. That's Eep. That's Millie.
It is 28 degrees here right now
It's really quite lovely. Favorite time of year.
with a 20-mile-an-hour wind. Millie is the dog.
So just to give you an idea of where we are. When we say far north, we really do mean that. Just to give you a little pan of the facility here, we've got our production floor over here with our mash cooker and our stills. It's all open top fermentation underneath open windows in the warmer times of the year. We're producing rye whiskey, bourbon, 2 styles of gin, a rye vodka, and 3 styles of rum. Got some aging casks over in the distance. We finish our Minnesota style rye whiskey and cognac, and we finish our Sauterne cask finish. Sauterne cask over here. Now all of our new barrels we source from 2 Minnesota cooperages. Okay.
Sorry about that, folks.
Sorry about that, folks.
Internet connection is back.
Internet in rural areas, right? This is our tasting room. It turns out we put a tasting room in the middle of a wheat field. People actually do show up. It's been a lot of fun to put this together. I wanted to show you a couple things here behind the bar. So, to give you a close-up of the grain that we grow, we have rye here that we grow. It's a variety called AC Hazlitt, and it's a Canadian variety of rye that grows really well up here on the northern tundra. Very tough, very winter hardy, very reliable crop. An example here of some malt barley. We have a maltster just 70 miles south of us. A guy who's a farmer who grows his own barley and malts it, and so we get along quite well. We also grow our own corn, which you saw the cornfield or what was left of it outside, but this is what you get from it. And so when we're grinding that up in our mash bills, makes for some nice whiskey. We have a little project going on here. Because we're a farm distillery, we're just now finishing a 3-year crop research study that we've done in conjunction with the Minnesota Department of Ag and the University of Minnesota. And what we've done is we've grown 15 different varieties of rye in 1-acre test plots. And we have milled, mashed, fermented, and distilled them individually. And some of you I know at T. Edward have tasted the white whiskey distillates that we have used for the study. And that's been some very interesting results to determine flavor profile just based on variety of rye alone. And the results of that have been very interesting. What has been, I think, even more interesting is what has happened to those varieties once they're put in a barrel. Originally, I was thinking that the barrel would kind of smooth over all those subtle differences between the varietals. And what we're finding is that actually that's not the case. The barrel has tended to amplify those differences. And so what we're seeing is that when you put a specific variety into a barrel, now these barrels were all made at the same cooperage. They were coopered on the same day during the same shift. And they were aged right next to each other on the same aging rack. And so we tried to keep those barrel variables to a minimum as well. But what we've found is that even sitting right next to each other on the barrel racks, these varieties did very different things coming out of the barrel. There was one variety in particular called Oakland that coming out of the barrel had some very distinctive flavor notes that resembled Scotch, specifically a non-peated, like a Highland single malt, which we really didn't expect. We saw a variety from Wisconsin called Spooner that did some beautiful things in the barrel, which I was kind of disappointed about because Spooner doesn't grow very well up here, but it really does make some nice whiskey. But for like examples like that, we've seen some really interesting differences between the varieties. So what we think we can do with this study is really start more discussion about grain itself and about the varieties themselves, and elevate that raw material. Perhaps not to the point of wine grapes, but at least a little more than what it currently is regarded. It's been fascinating to see the results. It's also been fascinating to see the response from the industry. Right now, things are kind of in a pause mode, but once the rye study is released and things are kind of back to the new normal, we're hoping that we can get back to talking about whiskey again, which will be nice. So again, I want to